Joining me for another episode of Rappin on the Rangers insider Jared Sandler. Trade deadline day, as we're talking about this now, and the Rangers move not one, not two, but three players at the trade deadline. Robinson Chirnos, Todd Frazier going to the New York Mets, and Mike Minor moving on to a division rival in the Oakland Athletics. How are you feeling now that we are at the end of the trade deadline officially?
I guess surprised. I certainly thought that Lance Lynn would be on the move. It seemed like it was a seller's market favorable for starting pitchers. You never know. Uh, for years I've said the most fascinating part of these deals are the trades that don't get accepted. You never know what was presented, and maybe the Padres deal with the Indians set the bar lower than what the Rangers would have liked, and they weren't getting offers they felt like were worth making that move. But it seemed like this was set up for the Rangers to cash in on Lance Lynn, but they obviously didn't go in that direction. So I think surprised is probably the word that best describes how I'm feeling. But at the same time, I guess I shouldn't be, because every trade deadline you think it's going to go one way and it goes the other way, et cetera, back and forth. So it's just kind of how it rolls.
Lance Lynn, Joey Gallo, both remaining with the Texas Rangers. There had been multiple reports that the Dodgers were in conversations with the Rangers of potentially acquiring Lance Lynn, among other teams that had been linked to Lance Lynn. Brian Broaddus brought up an interesting question. I want to ask you this question, and he may ask you this, fairly soon. What's the identity of this Rangers baseball team, Jared Sandler?
Well, they're a team that is, not where they want to be. And I think it's fair whether you want to label it a rebuild or whatever. It's a team that is playing more for the future than they are the present. So I guess that's the identity. I mean, I think just from like a baseball standpoint, when they're able to get guys on base, they show off the athleticism and they're aggressive on the bases. But I think you mean more directionally with the future of the team. So I don't know exactly. I guess I'm not positive, other than I know it's a team that's trying to look towards the future more so than the present.
And when you look at the moves or the lack thereof in terms of those moves, when you think about this front office and the previous success that it has had, but it seems like in the last few years, some of that struggle has really come to a head. Is there an opportunity for reevaluation of this front office, or more so, hey, this is a plan that's in motion, we just have to continue to stay the course in order to find a way back to where we were, several years ago at this point?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that a front office change is imminent. I think that this is a front office that is going to get an opportunity to see this plan through. I don't know when that finish line is, but I'll also say this. I think that there's some factors in play that maybe we don't know. What, as far as what some of the directives internally have been, and I'm curious to see what this offseason's like for all teams, and how many teams are, based on the money they distribute in free agency, seemingly unaffected by what's gone on, and which franchises have been affected. Because, that's one of the unique elements of baseball. Teams have their own internal salary cap, but there's no salary cap. And so something like the pandemic, whereas in the NBA, the salary cap is going to be, the same level for everyone. And, I guess teams have the decision to make on how much they want to go over the cap with certain deals and some of the penalties and whatnot. But for the most part, it's relatively level. Whereas in baseball, if one ownership group is taking a hit through the pandemic and another one hasn't really taken a hit at all, then, that tilts the scales a bit. I have no clue where the Rangers are or any other team is on this, but that is going to make this offseason quite interesting.
And it's funny you brought that up, because it made me think of a team immediately who seems like they're just going for it in this year, being the San Diego Padres, with all the moves that they've made in deciding to build around two of the young stars that they have in, Manny Machado, who's been around for quite a while, but I'm more speaking about, Fernando Tatis. But more so than anything from the Rangers' perspective now, where do they go from here? Because Lance Lynn still has a year left on his contract. Joey Gallo, of course, is still with this baseball team. Where do you see now the future of this team going relative to the moves that they made?
Yeah, I mean, I was of the opinion Gallo was not going to get moved this deadline. I thought that a lot of those conversations would help set things up for the offseason. And my thought is that Joey Gallo gets moved this offseason. And there are a few reasons why. One, he's not having the greatest season. And, I don't know to what degree that impacts the value, but when you don't have any stats, like in an off season, and you can look back on the potential or look forward to the potential, look back on some of the successes, values seem to change. Whereas, when you're hitting below 200 and not demonstrating the significant type of power that he has, that could change the value. I also didn't think there was as big of a market for a corner outfield bat as there was a starting pitcher. But I still think that until I see otherwise, that Gallo and Lynn will be moved before opening day 2021. I thought that Lance Lynn getting traded was going to happen. That didn't happen. I guess, there's certainly no guarantees, but I guess I can say this. I definitely think the conversations are going to pick back up once the season ends.
And I'm interested from a philosophical standpoint with team building in Major League Baseball today. Everyone obviously has a different way of going about team building, but relative to how this front office has built teams in the past, is there a formula that you could see that they could harken back to and say, this was successful for us a while back? There are elements that we can take from then that can help us build toward a future relative to the players that we have and what we think we have developing in our minor league system.
Yeah, I mean, I think, one philosophical change has been in the draft. They've been going after guys with more polished foundational offensive skills, hitting skills. And that doesn't necessarily mean college hitters, although those guys typically are found more in college than seniors in high school. But, I guess, Kat, I don't know if this is answering your question, but I think that the focus for the Rangers needs to be on building up the middle, pitcher, shortstop, center. Maybe they've checked the box off with Leody Taveras, but that's where I think the next steps are. This year really hurts them because having no minor league season prevents a lot of lower level guys who maybe aren't worth putting on the 60-man roster a chance to develop in earnest. And every team's impacted by this, right? No one has a minor league season, but a team that has a bad farm system or a team that has a fully developed farm system or a team that's got a very higher level loaded farm system versus a lower level loaded farm system. I mean, the dynamics change based on the profile of the farm system. I think the Rangers system is one that maybe feels a negative impact more so than others.
And I'm interested in your opinion on this because every team has a manager for a specific reason, whether they are developing, trying to get a young roster to grow, or they're in a win now situation. They need that kind of experience to be able to help get them over the top. For Chris Woodward, where do you see him fitting now that the moves that have been made have been done relative to now what they may do later on in his position and how that affects him?
Where's like as far as like his status or like how he's going to approach things?
Yeah.
Well, I don't think his job status is up in the air. I think this is a tough year. First of all, let's look at the hand he's been dealt here. I mean, I don't think that he has managed a 21-12 team to a 12-21 record, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think that philosophically this year the Rangers are going to tend to look at some of the younger players, whether it's positional guys like Leody Taveras, who's already starting to play every day, or maybe a guy like Josh Young who could get called up to get some at bats, maybe Anderson Tejeda on the mound. I think there's going to be continued emphasis on Colby Allard, but also maybe giving Kyle Cody more of a shot. Perhaps we see DeMarcus Evans and Alex Spees. Maybe we see, one of the other starters. I don't think Cole Winn or Ricky Vanasco, but I guess, you never quite know. But I do think there's going to be an emphasis on younger players for sure.
It should be very interesting to see over the next several weeks and then into the offseason how the Rangers continue to evaluate their prospects. Final word on this, Jared, as we look forward to this now, what do you expect for the rest of this season now that the trade deadline is behind us now?
Well, I guess just that is, I think the focus now shifts. And if the Rangers win a game 6-0, but you've got, really good performances from some of these young guys, maybe Kyle Cody started and Leote hit a home run, whatever the case, like that's what's going to excite you more than just a standard win in which you're getting, veteran contributions. Like love Jeff Mathis, great guy. If he goes 3 for 4 with like the three big hits, that's not as exciting as if Sam Huff were to come up and do some damage. So I think, that's going to be the emphasis. That's going to be the focus is the young guys. If you're still looking, if you're holding out hope, the Rangers are competitive. The positive is that they play the Astros 10 times in the month of September. And if they can go 8-2 against the Astros, then who knows? Maybe, maybe they can make something happen. The Mariners, the Angels, the Rangers, neither of those 3 teams have really established themselves as the team to challenge the Astros. But if the Rangers were to do that, they're going to do it because of the youth. They're not necessarily going to be making every single decision to win now, as opposed to looking towards the future.
And beating the Astros will make Jared Sandler very happy.
Nothing would make me happier. I would love to see the Astros not make the playoffs.
That's another episode of Rappin' on the Rangers with Rangers insider Jared Sandler. Jared, as always, I appreciate the time, man.
You got it, my man.